In the desert of New Mexico stands a steel tower. On top of it hangs the deadliest object ever built. It is July 16th, 1945, and it is still dark. If it fails, 3 years and $2 billion die with it. If it works, the world will never be the same again. 10 miles away, men lie face down in trenches. One of them is the man who built it. He is 41 years old and weighs almost nothing. For 3 years, this moment has eaten him alive. A voice counts down through the rain-soaked dark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then the desert turns brighter than the sun. In that light, a line from an ancient book rises in his mind. Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. This is the story of the man who said it. Robert Oppenheimer was born rich in New York, 1904. His father had arrived poor from Germany and made a fortune in cloth. The family walls were hung with paintings by Van Gogh. But the boy inside that apartment was strange and lonely. While other children played, he collected minerals. His school taught ethics as seriously as mathematics. At 12, a mineral club invited him to lecture, thinking he was an adult. At summer camp, the other boys saw only a target. One night, they dragged him to the ice house and locked him in. He never told the counselors, and he never went back. On the water, though, he was fearless. He raced storms in his sailboat until the harbor master gave up on him. Sick as a teenager, he was sent west to New Mexico to recover. The desert mesas did what the doctors could not. He fell in love with that empty land and never let it go. At Harvard, he devoured the whole place in 3 years. He arrived for chemistry, and physics stole him. Classmates said he lived on chocolate and black coffee. But brilliance was not the same as happiness. In 1925, he sailed for Cambridge, England. There, the golden boy finally failed at something. Laboratory work broke him, and his mind bent with it. Then he did something almost unbelievable. He left a poison apple on his tutor's desk. The tutor never ate it, and Robert confessed. Cambridge nearly expelled him for attempted poisoning. His father begged, and Robert got psychiatrists instead of police. A London doctor wrote him off as a hopeless case. The man who would build the bomb had nearly become a poisoner. On holiday in Paris, he even attacked his best friend. The friend forgave him. Robert could not explain himself. Then, on the island of Corsica, the fog began to lift. He read novels, slept under the stars, and chose to live. In the end, it was physics that saved him. In Germany, he dove into the newborn quantum world. His classmates were names that would fill the textbooks. Heisenberg, Dirac, Pauli, and the strange American. In Holland, he learned Dutch in 6 weeks, then lectured in it. The students nicknamed him Opch. In America, it became Oppie. By 1929, he was a professor at Berkeley, California. He taught at Berkeley and Caltech at once, shuttling between them. His students worshipped him and copied everything he did. They mimicked his mumble, his walk, even his hat. He rode fast horses into the hills and quoted poetry at the top. On the day World War II began, he published a paper predicting black holes. Nobody noticed. The world had other problems. He taught himself Sanskrit just to read old scriptures. One book gripped him above all, the Bhagavad Gita, an ancient poem about duty, war, and a God revealing endless power. He called it the most beautiful book in any language. He did not know it would one day give him his most famous words. The 1930s made him political. Until then, he had lived sealed inside physics. He learned of the 1929 crash months after it happened. He owned no radio and read no news at all. Now his students went hungry while fascism swallowed Europe. He fell for Jean Tatlock, a fierce young doctor. She was a communist, and she pulled him leftward. He gave money, joined causes, and made dangerous friends. He funded Spanish war relief through friends inside the party. His own brother, Frank, joined the Communist Party outright. The FBI opened a file on him before the bomb was even an idea. Jean lit a fire in him, then broke it off twice. He married Kitty, a biologist with a will of steel. But the agents kept watching and kept writing. Every secret would come back for him one day. In 1942, America raced to build the bomb before Hitler could. The man in charge was General Leslie Groves. Groves had just built the Pentagon ahead of schedule. Now he needed a scientist to run a secret weapons laboratory. He wanted a genius with ambition burning a hole in him. Everyone told him not to pick Oppenheimer. No prize, no experience, and a file full of communists. One colleague joked he could not run a hamburger stand. Army security formally refused to clear him. Groves signed the clearance himself and dared anyone to object. He met Oppenheimer on a train and picked him anyway. He later called it his best decision of the war. Oppenheimer knew the perfect place to hide a laboratory. The lonely mesa he had loved since boyhood, Los Alamos. The Army bought a boys' school and built a hidden town on the mesa. It did not exist on any map. Its only address was a post box in Santa Fe. Babies born on the mesa had that box number as their birthplace. Even love letters home came back with lines cut away. A town planned for 300 swelled past 6,000. The greatest minds in the world quietly vanished into the desert. Even the most famous physicist alive arrived under a false name. Niels Bohr, traveling as Mr. Nicholas Baker. Oppenheimer ran it all, and he was everywhere at once. He knew every experiment, every feud, every stuck door. The man who could not run a hamburger stand ran thousands. At dawn he rode the mesa trails alone before the day devoured him. At night he mixed the martinis himself and knew every name. On Saturdays they danced in a mess hall the world did not know existed. A young prankster named Feynman kept cracking the secret safes, just to prove the atomic secrets were not safe at all. Kitty came too, and their small son learned to walk on the mesa. In spring the streets were mud. In winter the pipes froze. But the weight of it all burned Oppenheimer away. 5 packs of cigarettes a day and meals he forgot to eat. His weight fell to 115 pounds. His office light burned latest of all. In 1943, he slipped away to see Jean one last time. Agents followed him and wrote down every minute. Months later, Jean was gone, and part of him went dark with her. There was no time to grieve. The gadget was waiting. By the summer of 1945, Germany had fallen, but the bomb was ready. Oppenheimer named the test site Trinity after a poem he loved. The device rode to the tower on a creaking army truck. First, they rehearsed with a mountain of ordinary explosive. The practice blast was heard 60 miles away. The real one would be worse. The scientists took bets on how big the blast would be. Enrico Fermi joked it might set fire to the sky itself. Nobody laughed at that joke twice. Some feared the bomb would not work at all. Others feared it would. That night, a thunderstorm broke over the desert. At 2 a.m, the weathermen argued over the storm. Groves and Oppenheimer decided together. The test would go on. Oppenheimer paced the bunker, chain smoking, coughing. Groves growled at him to get some rest. At 5:29, the rain stopped and the final count began. Somewhere on the same frequency, a radio station played soft violin music. In that last hour, witnesses said he could barely stand. He gripped a post and hardly breathed. Then came the light, brighter than 100 suns and seen 3 states away. Far away on a dark highway, a blind girl asked, "What was that?" Then the sound arrived, a roar that rolled on for minutes. A purple and orange cloud climbed 7 miles into the dawn. Where the tower had stood, the sand had turned to green glass. The army told the papers an ammunition dump had exploded. Beside him, his brother heard him whisper 4 words. I guess it worked. Days later, friends noticed his walk had changed. A gunslinger strut. Years later, He told the world what had really crossed his mind. That line from the Gita, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." 3 weeks later, a single plane flew toward a city called Hiroshima. Weeks earlier, Oppenheimer had calmly advised how high the bomb should burst. He helped choose how. He helped choose where. At Los Alamos, the loudspeakers crackled with the news. The scientists cheered. They had won their race. One young physicist had begged them all to sign a warning first. Oppenheimer had told him to put it away. That night, he clasped his hands overhead like a winning boxer. But walking home, he saw a colleague being sick in the bushes. The cheering stopped inside him. Then a second bomb fell on Nagasaki. Japan surrendered. The war was over. And 200,000 people were gone. Oppenheimer could not stop seeing them. Groves telephoned him. "I am proud of you," the general said. Oppenheimer no longer knew if he was. He quit Los Alamos, and the whole town stood to cheer him out. In October, he stood before President Truman and broke. "Mr. President, I feel I have blood on my hands." Truman was disgusted and never wanted to see him again. After the war, Oppenheimer became the face of the atomic age. He advised presidents and preached restraint. Then he opposed the hydrogen bomb, a weapon 1,000 times stronger. Powerful men decided the father of the bomb was now a problem. His phone was tapped, his office bugged, his shadow followed. In 1953, a letter accused him of being a Soviet agent. His security clearance was suspended overnight. In 1954, they tried him in a shabby back room. Einstein told him to simply walk away from the circus. He stayed. He could not imagine a life outside the Citadel. For 4 weeks, they dug through his entire life. A prosecutor named Rob carved him apart, hour after hour. Cornered over an old lie, Oppenheimer whispered, "I was an idiot." They read out his night with Jean, while his wife sat listening. Old friends testified against him, including Edward Teller. Teller said the secrets would be safer in other hands. The transcript of his shame ran 3,000 pages. The vote was 2-1. Even his judges could not agree. They stripped his clearance one day before it would have expired anyway. Overnight, his advice was unwanted and his name unspoken. The father of the bomb was branded a security risk. He kept his professorship at Princeton, but his voice was gone. The government built on his brain had thrown him away. Friends said something inside him had been killed that year. Students still filled his lectures to glimpse the ruined legend. He sailed, he lectured, and he grew quieter every year. And in every interview, he refused to call the bomb a mistake. On a beach in the Virgin Islands, he found a little peace. He built a Spartan cottage on the sand and sailed with his daughter. In 1963, a new president tried to make it right. President Johnson handed him the Fermi Award, Science's Apology. Kitty wept. Robert only bowed his head. The cigarettes that had steadied him all his life came to collect. In 1967, throat cancer killed him at 62. 600 people came to Princeton to mourn him. His ashes were scattered in the sea he had sailed. No cadavre, no stone, only the story. For decades, the verdict against him stood. Historians kept pulling the old files apart, year after year. They found no spy, only a man destroyed by his enemies. Even the government's own review called the old trial deeply flawed. In December 2022, the ruling was finally struck down. 68 years too late for Robert. A year later, the whole world was watching his story again. School children now read the words he borrowed from a Gita. The words the desert taught him. He built the thing he feared most, then spent his life warning us about it. The light of Trinity has never gone out.